Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another session of Wednesdays with Windrose. We are doing another Ask Me Anything session today, and we'll be covering a bunch of questions. I'm really excited. Uh, Again, I'm Rohit Goyal, managing partner at Windrose Capital, and I look forward to answering more questions. So feel free to reach out to us through our LinkedIn channel or through YouTube as well, or just mention in comments below over here. Lovely. So let's dive right into it. So to begin with, our first question for the day is: would love to know what your take on the industry is. How often does a VC adapt to the change and catch the trend? Uh, I believe like adaptation is like a continuous, ongoing process. It's not like VCs have like a learning curve in the sense every 3 years or 5 years we adapt. It's continuous basis. Things change, it's a very dynamic environment, right? So now let's say COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, a lot of realignments were done within the industry. Anytime anything big or anything new happens, right? Let's say a new discovery which might make the older way of doing things a bit obsolete or a bit inefficient, we may have to rework our thesis, maybe change in perspective, maybe change in larger global regulations. All of those things impact, right? So it's not advisable to sort of revise your outlook in like a fixed set of time frame. It's more of an ongoing process. uh, okay, next couple of questions are more from the student's perspective, right? What is the most important factor you look in a candidate for a VC role? More importance is given to the fundamental knowledge, that is knowing the industry, understanding the product, etc., or technical slash financial knowledge. Okay. Okay. So I don't think there is a generic answer to this question, but I'll tell you what I believe in. So, and for me, the most important factor is perspective. What is the sort of fresh perspective that the candidate is bringing, or it need not even be fresh. It just has to be unique and genuine in the sense that it has to be something that one stands for, right? Like we've had candidates who are just undergrad, right? So I've had people working with me who are 22 years old, so of course no MBA as such done by then, and but have a very different outlook towards life, have a different lens of looking at life, and that really adds value. Yeah, I'm going to actually club the next two questions together because I think both of them are to a great extent interrelated, and of course in continuation to the whole theme. One is, how should I go about entering the VC space? Is it mandatory to get an MBA? Okay, and the second question to club with it is, how do you get a head start your career in the VC ecosystem? Right? Both of them are very valid question. Again, as I mentioned before, an MBA degree is not mandatory, but that's my perspective, right? Because very honestly, I respect people with degrees, but I don't think so that just having a degree really proves your capabilities, right? As in, we've had the irony that I always share is my partner in the fund is a CA by qualification, but he comes to me for financial advice, and I am an electronics and telecom engineer by graduation, and I go to him for anything to do with technicalities and coding and stuff like that. So he's the tech partner with a finance degree, and I am the strategy and finance partner with a tech and a finance degree, so to say. So I don't really believe that your degree should justify or sort of typecast you into something. So yeah, you could have studied anything, right? One thing I've realized is people who've studied economics have a fresh or a different outlook, because they usually tend to take a more like a step back approach rather than an MBA who's more operational in nature, and they might want to get into specifics and nitty-gritties, and in that a lot of time they end up losing the focus on the bigger picture, right? So I think like an MBA is not actually a prerequisite to get into the space. Having a good fundamental understanding of finance and numbers is required. So even if I believe somebody's attempted CFA level one, level two, I think it's great. If you've cleared the entire three levels, it's fantastic. But that's about it. I think more important is required in person. Like I would give more weightage to a fresh perspective. Now, going about how do you head start your career in the system? So basically, just reach out there, right? So, and I know number of opportunities on the buy side, like on the VC side, may not be as many, But the idea is just get yourself embedded into the ecosystem, right? So into the startup ecosystem at large. So you might want to work at consulting services that are providing services to startups. You might want to work with investment banking firms. You might want to work with advisory firms. But yeah, a bad way to get into startups is to get into equity research, listed equity research, etc., and sort of spend your time doing that, and then deciding, oh, now that I have like whatever a few years of experience, let me switch over to a VC or a buy side private equity investment, because that usually so your experience before may not be relevant at all. Also, you get used to or hooked on to the luxury of having more information available at your fingertips, which is verifiable and audited, which is usually not the case for VCs, right? So we have very little information, and the one that we have is not very highly reliable to begin with. I'm talking at large. Of course, when you do go ahead make an investment, you get much more detailed and accurate information, and by performing a due diligence or something of that sort. But initially, yeah, a lot of it is in the air, so to say. I hope that gives some clarity. So yeah, getting head start, just get associated, get yourself embedded, intern at places, speak with a lot of people within the industry. Uh, Speaking with a lot of people, what helps you really develop your own perspective of things. And once you have that developed, suddenly you become more desirable for a role within the industry. Okay, moving on to the last question for today. Tips on how to go about thesis building, how to source correct data and build a thesis around it. Wow, that's a heavy one. So thesis building is probably it's a very very high value exercise. It's like it's as important as, like, having a strategic roadmap is for any particular company. Without that, you're just sort of floating with the wind, so to say. So so yeah, there are quite a few things one needs to remember. Again, data may not be available. A lot of reliable data may not be available. So you need to look at the same data from different sources and see what sort of an alignment you are getting around that, right? So just to give you one simple example, right? So when we were developing our thesis, there was this whole demographic dividend piece coming up in India. Okay, by 2021, the median age of Indians is going to be X or Y. India is going to be the youngest country by median age. We are going to have the largest working force population, blah blah blah. So we may not have nailed down the exact number of people that are going to be there, but what we were able to assess was that there are multiple sources of data referencing to more or less the same theme coming up. So it is not important whether, let's say, the median age of India by 2025 was 26 years old or 27 years old or 28 years old, or so the absolute number may not be as important. What is important is, okay, it's in the ballpark of 26, 27, 28, right? So that's the band, which means we can still establish. It really does not matter uh, if at a macroeconomic level, if the numbers are a percent here or there, or a little up and down, as long as the context or the theme remains the same, right? So one way to go about collecting reliable data is to just collect more data and more from different varied sources. Also, do check that it shouldn't happen that there's one primary source of data and you've gotten the same data from 10 different places, but all those 10 different places are referring back to the same data point. So which means in effect you only have data from one source. So that's one important thing uh, to think about. Another thing is, remember, while building your investment thesis, what is the horizon that you are building it for? And this is where you will see a lot of change, right? So let's say at Windrose, our thesis is designed more with a 5 to 7 year horizon. So which means we know that the thesis that we have today would be completely outdated and useless by, let's say, 2025, right? Because what our thesis was built somewhere in 2018, 2019. So we know that the relevance of the same is going to die by that point of time. So, yeah, so there you have your data source collection, your time horizon piece. The other is also to see what really stands true to you, right? So, for example, if you ask me, or rather at Windows, so okay, so let's keep park Windows for a second on the side, right? So personally, if you ask, I feel that there's tremendous opportunity in the whole genomic space and the whole merger of humans with biotechnology, so to say, right? But that's not something that we at Windows are aligned to do. We don't have the right skill set, neither the right desire, it's not a proper fit for us. So it's not necessarily that every theme or opportunity that you identify you might want to pursue. you also need to know that can you genuinely internalize that opportunity, and how can you be the best for it. So like that, once you go about thesis hunting, you will find multiple themes, multiple trends, and trust me, you've got like tons of reports out there which just sort of dumps those themes and trends for you. Some of them are as short as a year to 2 years, and as I said, some of them could be multiple decades longer. So one needs to keep in track on all these factors, and yeah, and then go about building your own thesis as, okay, because of these, this is what you truly believe in, and that has to come from within, as in it's not something which, this sounds good on paper, so let me go after it, because then you will falter in execution. Again, thesis is usually a multiple years long. It's not something that you have to execute over the next 1 week or 2 weeks. So you really have to be at it day by day, week by week, month on month, or year on year. So it has to be something which really resonates with what you truly believe in. So yeah, I think those were my tips for thesis building, and that sort of sums up our questions for today's. Lovely. Thank you so much for watching. Again, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, ask more questions. We'd love that. We'd love to answer you, and we make our attempt to answer each and every question that hits us. Either comment below here on either LinkedIn, uh, through our company page, or my personal page. Links to the same are below. And yeah, thank you for your time.